enough folks here today. I call this meeting to order at 1:03 p.m. And now for the approval of the agenda, I will need a mover. Thank you. I saw Hal's hand first, Hal Holt. I'll also need a seconder. Councillor Neal, thank you. And now I will call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hands. Perfect. And any opposed? Okay, we will carry the agenda through. So I will pause briefly to give committee members the opportunity to make additions or corrections to the minutes from April 25th, 2022. If there are no changes, I will call a vote. And for confirmation of the minutes, I will need a mover. Thank you, Sunita. I will also need a seconder. Thank you, Taran. I will now call for a vote. All in favor? Perfect. And any opposed? Perfect. So this confirms that the minutes of the Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Committee meeting number 04-2022, held Monday, April 25th, 2022, be approved. And now for the disclosure of pecuniary interest, I will ask committee members if anyone has a pecuniary interest to declare. Perfect. So we will move on to the next agenda item. And I do not see that we have any members of the public present with us today. As such, we'll move to the next part of the agenda following the delegations. And I don't see any briefings on the agenda today, so we'll move on to the business agenda items. So the title of the report is the first report is the multi-year accessibility plan consultation. I invite the respective staff member to provide an overview of the report. Oh, and Derek, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Actually, that would be myself, Manuela, who is doing the report today, the overview. So since the last time the committee has met, I have moved temporarily into the role of Deputy City Clerk. So this report comes from my office. So I'm happy to provide the committee with an overview and take any comments or answer any questions. So good afternoon, everybody. I'll just do a brief overview and then can, again, receive comments and take any questions. The multi-year accessibility plan is required under the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. I'll sometimes refer to that as the AODA. Municipalities are required to produce these documents and update them once every 5 years. So the end of this year, 2022, our current plan expires, and the plan being presented is the one for the next 3 years after. The purpose of the plan is to outline what the city will do to reduce barriers to accessibility within city services, programs, and facilities. And that's an important point to emphasize, is that this limits itself to anything the city does. We often receive comments with accessibility concerns about private property or private facilities, which unfortunately the city does not have any jurisdiction or mandate over that area. So since the start of 2022, staff have worked with our own Municipal Accessibility Advisory Committee, consulted internally with city staff, as well as conducted a couple of rounds of public engagement with Kingston residents on what content should be going into the accessibility plan. Those comments that have been received have been incorporated, the first round of comments, into the draft plan that was shared with you as part of this report. Can also share that additional engagement on this draft report has been done, and we are currently awaiting a report back from a consulting firm, Two Canes Consulting, who specialize in the area of accessibility. They have done some work for us as well, and we'll be incorporating their feedback as well. An important part of the plan itself is also recognizing the role that equity, diversity, and inclusion play with accessibility. I know Mohammed has talked about that numerous times, and while Mohammed's group and the Accessibility Office are considered separate entities within the city at this point, we do work together on this creation and the creation of accessibility plans, and that's an important factor in the creation of this plan, is recognizing the interplay between EDI and the intersectionality, hopefully I'm using that term correctly, between a lot of aspects of EDI and accessibility. So it both presents some challenges and some opportunities to staff. So with that overview, what I am looking for from the committee today, or what I am interested in, is seeking feedback on the plan itself and what is shared in there. And if you've had a chance to read it, the first few pages are the typical bureaucratic explanation of the plan. The main area we're interested in are the plan strategies that are included within the plan. So you'll notice there were 5 different headings. These align with what's called the Integrated Accessibility Standards Regulations under the AODA. And really broadly, these are the categories that the city as a municipality is responsible for ensuring accessibility. These are shortly customer service, information and communications, employment, transportation, which in this case refers to public transit systems such as Kingston Transit, and the design of public spaces. And these would be the public spaces that are under the control of the city of Kingston. So this is how we tend to organize the information and are the general areas that are considered. And it's important to note that a lot of timelines the city was required to meet for accessibility have already sort of passed as part of the implementation of the AODA. So what we are moving to now is going above and beyond those regulations, as has been pointed out to me by a few people in the industry. The regulations are a great minimum standard to avoid any potential human rights complaints, but are not fantastic in terms of ensuring accessibility above the minimum requirement. So really, we're looking for any comments you have on those aspects as well. If there's anything that we missed in the report or in the draft report in regarding accessibility and how it interacts with EDI. So it's a big document and a big project to try and boil down into a couple of minutes, but hopefully I have provided a decent overview, and I'm happy to answer any questions and receive any feedback. The next steps will be the final plan will go to the Accessibility Advisory Committee in November, and pending their approval will be forwarded to council in December. So we'll be going to the new term of council this year. And with that, again, happy to answer any questions and receive any comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. And if anyone has any questions, you can use the raise hand function. I did personally have a question, Derek, for the training opportunities. I see it noted under the customer service goals. With those training, I guess, what would the delivery method be for those sorts of training opportunities that you're looking at? And would they be subject matter experts doing those sorts of presentations?
Yes, I can sort of answer those questions generally, in that the city does have a internal human resources and organizational development group that creates a lot of e-learning opportunities. So I believe, dependent on the individual type of training, there would be e-learning opportunities. And I believe now that we are out relatively back into in-person, that some opportunities will be offered in person. I believe recently, and Mohammed can correct me if I'm wrong, there was some training offered to, I'll call it allyship training, has been offered and was offered, they were offered in person, I believe. So it'll be a mix, I think, depending on the type of training. And I'll also expand, some departments do individual training that's more suited to their staff's needs, depending on their interaction. Some groups interact with the public a lot more frequently than others, so they may have some more specialized departmental training. And hopefully that answers your question, Manuela.
Yes, thank you, Derek. And now to Councillor Holland, I believe you had your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And through you, so first of all, thank you for this report. Thank you to staff for all the work on this and to the various committees involved. The one thing that comes up a lot from members of the public, and I didn't see it in the report, although I'm sure there's been a lot of ongoing discussion, is the access to public washrooms in the city. And so I know, I mean, there's some of our municipal facilities that are available, but is this something that it will be part of the work of the accessibility committee or part of the plan in the future? I have several questions. Sorry, that's the first one.
Certainly, and I'm happy to answer that. So yes, public washrooms is something we receive a lot of comments on. One project that's actually being worked on outside of this project and will hopefully begin this year or early next year is both a GIS interactive map as well as a plain text version of facilities in the city that are accessible, which would include public washrooms that contain accessible washrooms. So that information will hopefully be coming out soon and contained within that. You can also see some different priorities. It may not be included in specifics in the plan, but another option that has been identified by our accessibility group is sharing information with, there's existing, I believe, I can't think of the names now, applications that highlight accessibility features that are run by basically third parties, and seeing if we can share that information with those groups. So there is some work happening in that area, just not contained within the plan, because hopefully it will be happening this year.
Great. Okay, thanks. So the next one then on the training that will be offered, and all the various trainings that are mentioned sound wonderful. I was curious if those resources would be, it also says in the report that there'll be ongoing consultation with the business community and encouragement and communication along the lines of what's in the accessibility plan. But would the types of training or the training materials that the city develops, would they be available to be distributed to businesses, for example, to small businesses, so that they can have the same kind of, or have, it's hard to get a consultant in, they're expensive, that kind of thing?
That's a great question. And through the chair, I can't speak directly as to whether or not the city would share that information, since that would come from our human resources. I will note it and see if it is possible for inclusion in the plan. I will also note that through a lever we control, the awareness and education group for the accessibility committee, they choose different topics each year to help sort of educate the public on. One topic scheduled for next year is helping educate businesses on the regulations around service animals. So that's an area of consideration. It's also training that city staff undertakes. So that would be the avenue for pursuing that directly with the businesses. But I will do some follow-up with our human resources group on that. So that's a great comment, Councillor.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Perfect. Thank you both. And to you, Hal.
Thank you, Manuela. And I'll echo what Councillor Holland said. A great report, and it's really encouraging to see all the activities that's taking place. I don't have a question, but I have a comment that I just wrote there. Given my age and my volunteer work and church work, I gravitated to your section on public engagement. And I noticed you had some feedback on that in your surveys. And you indicated at one point about using the widest variety of communication tools possible. That is a really important thing in my view. And maybe I'm self-serving here, but if you look, for example, when you're talking about inclusion, you look at the percent breakout in Kingston, 8% South Asian, 5.2% Indigenous, 1.7% Chinese, etc. 14.1% are at or above retirement age. And I know from my own experience, there are a lot of them that do not have computers, and they don't have cell phones or whatever. So I'm just, my own comment is that I think that's a really important area to focus on when you're talking about inclusion. I don't know what form that takes, but I just sort of highlight that it's an area that I think really needs a lot of attention. So I just throw it out there.
Thank you, Hal. And I think Councillor Neal, you also wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Yes, just to follow up to Hal's comments. Do we, and this is a question through Derek, do we make information available at the senior center and do other outreach? Because I know we're still paying a lot of money to the WIG, but very few people are buying the WIG these days or reading it. So is there an outreach to senior center?
Yes, I'm happy to answer that question. And through the chair, cities communications do a lot of things outside of the typical electronic communications, even outside of the newspaper. So it's really dependent on the target audience that is looking to receive the information, but we do have a lot of information sharing with stakeholders such as the Kingston Seniors Association. We work a lot with our social service providers as well. As an example, for the upcoming election, I can state that the department I'm with has a targeted communication with service providers such as Lionhearts and the Food Bank and the Seniors Association to share information about voting and voting accessibility. So as a specific example, and generally, yes, the city does use more of these in-person levers to attempt to share information on city services.
That's great. Thank you.
All right, are there any other comments from the committee on this agenda item? Okay, so, oh, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to let you know there are 2 members of the public, just in case there were any questions from those individuals who are joining us today, if they could just raise their hand in Zoom to indicate if they'd like to provide comment or ask a question. And I'm not seeing any hands, so we can continue forward.
Thank you very much. And so next on the agenda is the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Office Report Q3 2022. It is for information only as noted, but I will pass it on to Mohammed for a brief overview. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Through you, I want to take this opportunity to recognize that it's been more than 1 year since this committee started working with City of Kingston in advisory capacity, and it's been an exciting time to work with all of you together. With that note, I want to summarize the activities of Q3 for the information. The report in front of you provides an update on different aspects of the work that were done in Q3 as an Exhibit A. And some of the highlights are related to the review and revision of employees' onboarding process. So what we did exactly is that we provided a detailed breakdown of the onboarding process to HR and organizational development department in terms of new employees orientation, and explain it to them what are some of the barriers and how those barriers can be addressed so that a new employee who joins the corporation is feeling welcome. And some of the tips were provided specifically with the lens of the intersections of the society, and also through the lens of systemically excluded individuals and groups. The next update is related to the Edi Training, again in partnership with Human Resources and Organizational Development. The first series of Edi Training was launched for staff of all level at the corporation. So this training was offered both virtually as well as in person. And the target was to develop the capacity of staff in groups. The first topic of this series that was selected was towards LGBTQ plus awareness and allyship. And the reason for selection of this topic was to recognize the Pride Month. The city also developed signs with progressive flags, which is attached in this report as Exhibit B, to be displayed by the employees only after attending the training. This training is ongoing, and for certain departments is specifically tailor-made for their needs. For example, for our customer-facing departments, a lot focuses on the language usage and gender-neutral language, and departments who are dealing with seniors and more vulnerable population, it's more focused on the trauma-informed towards LGBTQ care. The next update that I have is for human resource management system upgrade. With the support of human resource and organizational development and information systems and technology. The city's human resource management system was upgraded to facilitate staff in self-selecting their pronouns and gender identity. This was something that was not part of city's HRMS feature before, and a lot of consultation work went internally to make sure that staff are comfortable and the educational piece went out with it. This is a completely voluntarily volunteer option, and it's optional for staff to self-identify. And we also made sure that when the communication went out, there are some learning opportunities attached to it for the staff. In terms of also learning and development, we worked with human resource organizational development and communication and customer service experience departments to develop a micro learning series for staff, and that was focused on inclusive language and microaggression in workplaces. The idea was to make sure that everyone is able to learn through this process, rather than developing an exclusive guide with all words. We chose to go one word at a time. So this communication campaign that is launched and now is being in motion is called Changing Experiences World, One World at a Time. And it has different aspects of words as well as their historical significance and alternatives. The thought process was that instead of just forbidding certain words in the workplace, we wanted to make sure the staff is able to realize that what is the historic significance and why those words are not appropriate for the usage in public sector or any sector, and also giving them the opportunity to find some alternatives that are more user-friendly from the perspective of equity, diversity, and inclusion. And last but not the least, we have developed a living document of EDI resource directory, which is attached with this report as Exhibit C, and that was established so that staff can consult with these resources as and when needed. It's a pretty extensive resource guide with the general EDI resources to the resources specific to gender, identity, workplace safety, language, age, race, accessibility, and to us LGBTQ community. With this, I thank you all, and if there are any questions or comments, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you for the overview, Mohammed. Do any committee members have any questions or comments? Go ahead, Hal.
Thank you. I just got one very general question, Mohammed, on the work plan. I'm looking at goal 3, education and training. And there's a item 3.1, actively engage agreement around issues of EDI to create a sustainable.
Hal, I think you accidentally might have muted yourself. We missed a few
Did
minutes.
I say anything was heard?
Just the last 30 seconds of what you were saying. If you could say it again, thank you.
I was just saying, I just want clarification. Item on the goals section in the work plan, goal 3.1, actively engage external partners and stakeholders with which the city has agreements around issues of EDI to create a sustainable and inclusive environment. It indicates that the committee is being looked for input on that. And to be honest, I'm not totally sure what that item is and what kind of thing we could provide input on.
To you, Mohammed.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and through you. This goal is a work in progress. As we are moving ahead, we are working with different community organizations and partner organization within the city of Kingston, which is not limited to St. Lawrence College, Queen's Universities, KCHC, and many other organizations that city works very closely with, and also in certain cases providing support and engaging with the surrounding municipalities around Kingston to provide them with some support from our side. And in terms of the consultant providing input part, it is like if this committee feels that there is a specific organization or a partner or a stakeholder that needs some support from our side, we can definitely target and channelize our energies towards them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you wanted to add, Hal?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And on to Vanessa. Go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Mohammed, thanks for that. I just had a quick question, and I don't know, maybe if you can address this, just in regards to that, the point about housing and homelessness and around culture and climate. Obviously, we're not going to change culture and climate overnight, but the point in 1.1 about the composition of the Housing and Homelessness Committee, do you know how the individuals with lived experience are being selected for that committee, if they are already selected? And second to that, are we doing any training with the city around anti-stigma? I know Overdose Awareness Day is coming up this week. Is there any type of training going around anti-stigma around homelessness and substance use?
So I'll answer the second part of your question first through you, Madam Chair, and then Derek can chime in for the first part of recruitment of the Housing and Homelessness Committee's members. So especially when it comes to housing and homelessness, cities department that take care of it has an ongoing cycle of trainings. I cannot speak to specifically about which training is being delivered for the staff there, but I can definitely confirm that the trauma-informed care and removal of stigma around substance use has been part of their learning needs indication. And over to you, Derek, for the recruitment piece of Housing and Homelessness Committee members.
Excellent. Thank you, Mohammed. And to answer that question, there are two ways we are going to approach the recruitment for those persons with lived experience that we are seeking on the Housing and Homelessness Advisory Committee. First, we do a general call out through the public, through a variety of different communications means to attract basically any qualified member or any qualified resident of the city of Kingston. So we may be able to attract some people who have the various experiences that are being looked for, but in a more refined approach, we will be working with our colleagues in Housing and Social Services to help get some tailored communications out through some of the city's service providers in these areas to help seek people to apply to serve on the committee. At the end of the day, staff are responsible for collecting the applications and trying to solicit them, but it is also the Nominations Advisory Committee, which is 6 members of council, who will decide which members are appointed. So we are going to take those two different tactics, a general advertisement as well as one more targeted at service providers, to try and find those individuals to apply and serve on the committee.
Thank you, Derek. And Vanessa, was there any other follow-up you wanted to ask or anything?
No, that's great. Thank you.
Perfect. And Sunita, to you.
Thank you. And through you, Madam Chair. My question is perhaps a little bit more general. I know Councillor Holland had touched on it a little bit earlier when we were talking about the accessibility report. In terms of, I think in Q1 we had, I noticed that we had created tools to help small businesses use the EDI, the resources and tools for them to almost like building capacity within the community or small businesses. I'm curious just as to what that uptake has been like, what the reception is like. And I think this goes back to that question as well, like not only are we trying to share resources, how can we help build capacity in the community for EDIIA work?
Thank you, Sunita, and to you, Mohammed.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, through you, Sunita, for highlighting the EDI resource guides for small businesses. This guide was developed with the help of a few city departments, and we use the same resources to share it with different businesses, and also over the period of time that guide has like grown a little bit more in terms of adding more resources to it. And now that we have a more of a living document with the EDI resources internally for the city, we are aiming to incorporate both these resources together so that we can timely update these resources. As far as working with small businesses is concerned, it's slightly beyond the capacity of city staff in equity, diversity, and inclusion, as we are in process of building the foundation of EDI within the corporation itself. We do provide them some guidance if we are approached, but we are not actively reaching out and working with businesses in Kingston. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. And Sunita, was there anything else you'd like to add?
No, perhaps just a comment to what you said, Mohammed, and through you, Madam Chair. Again, we've indicated that as a deliverable, but then it would be interesting to know what that uptake is like, and then where are they sent when they are looking for more knowledge, or is the Workplace Inclusion Charter the be-all, end-all gold standard here in Kingston? And is there diversity within the resources that we are providing, or are we trying to paint everybody with that one brush of the Workplace Inclusion Charter? So these are some of the natural questions I would like to find out more about. And I think my earlier question, when I had asked, like, how do we provide input or ask questions of this EDI committee, that was one of it, because that has been touted as the ultimate gold standard in Kingston. And I'm curious to know what that uptake is like. But it's more of a comment, like I said, perhaps not a question. Don't mean to put you on the spot. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, if I may. So Workplace Inclusion Charter is slightly beyond the scope of the work that EDI office has done, as it's been in motion even before this office was established. So we are in a second phase of Inclusion Charter, where we are internally augmenting the charter to be able to meet the needs of municipalities and organizations beyond the scope of the charter. So what I can confirm right now is that the charter is very closely being reviewed by internal city staff and with the help of some external resources. But it's still in the very initial stages for me to provide any concrete feedback on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. And I do have a question/comment. So I do note that the HRMS update is going to include pronouns and gender identity. And maybe as an add-on or a comment, unless the city is already doing this, I think it would be advisable to have a preferred name section as well, because often folks might have a legal name that they haven't changed, but have a preferred name that they would rather use, and to not have a dead name being used in the workplace. Just something, if it's not already in place, something that might be a good add-on to include in that update if it's not too late.
Thank you very much, Manuela. That is a really important feedback. And this is one of the features that we wanted to enhance within our HRMS system, and our HROD and ISNT teams are still working to figure out a solution of the documented name versus the chosen name, which may not be documented, as we also recognize that there are barriers for people to be able to get their legal document is updated. It may not be just related to trans and non-binary community, but it could be reasons beyond people's control outside the scope of trans and non-binary community, such as somebody who has married and or for some other safety reasons they have changed their name for several reasons of protection. So that is something that we are working on to find a way to be able to address the minimum legal needs, as well as to be able to accommodate and support anyone with the requirements around their chosen names. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Mohammed. And to you, Councillor Neal.
Just a quick comment, and it may again be Derek that addresses this, but a few years ago, we had a rule that to belong to any committee, this was only 8 or 9 years ago, you had to be a citizen of Canada. We thankfully amended it at that time to say a resident of Kingston. Now, sometimes people require that qualifying information, particularly to vote, but also to belong to city committees. How can we get around that if people prefer not to share their name or to have a different name? I'll ask Derek. I totally think they should have that ability, but it may throw a wrench into our process.
I can answer, I believe, one of the questions, but may need some clarification. So Councillor Neal is correct. The criteria to serve on a committee is being either a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, which in this case means a person who's been given permanent resident status by emigrating to Canada, but is not a citizen and has resided within Kingston at least 1 year. So that's within our bylaw. We do not do any type of fact checking on this. It's just listed on the committee application. So it's up to the individual when they submit their application. They are basically saying they're qualified to serve on the committee. As for, I believe there was perhaps a second question in there about preferred name, but if that was indeed a question, I would just respond that we will use whatever preferred name a person provides us in any communications. We do not sort of have any legal requirement for a legal name for the appointment. So if a person provides us their preferred name, that is what we will use in all our official correspondence.
Perfect. Thank you both. Councillor Neal, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Nope, that's good. Thank you.
Perfect. So before moving on to any comments or questions from members of the public, is there anyone from the committee that would like to ask any questions? Any further questions? Okay, perfect. So if any member, oh, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Sorry, Manuel, I just wanted to note if there's anyone in the public, there are still 2 members here. If there's anyone there that would wish to ask a question or provide a comment at this time, to just allow them that opportunity, again, by raising their hand in Zoom. But I'm not seeing any hands. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. So that closes off that agenda item. I don't see that we have any motions, notices of motion, other business, or correspondence. So I will move to the date of our next meeting. The next meeting of the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee is scheduled on Monday, October 17th, 2022 at 1 p.m. And for the adjournment of our meeting today, I will need a mover. Thank you, Councillor Neal. And I will also need a seconder. Thank you, Sunita. I will now call for a vote. All in favor of adjournment? Perfect. Any opposed? Okay, and today's meeting is adjourned at 1:43 p.m. Thank